And I would like to start with welcoming our new face on the commission, Brian Burton. And as part of the roll call today for attendance, what I'd like to do, I know the city's policy is to not share video just because of bandwidth, but I'd like to just go through each person and do a brief introduction so we can get to know each other. Keep your video on for this, please. And then after we get through our roll call and introductions, we can turn off video. So maybe starting with commissioners, I'll start, and then to city staff. So I am Julie Lead. I'm a civil co-owner of and current chair of the commission, and I've been on Transportation Commission for a couple years. Previously did the Regional Plan Citizens Advisory Committee and also served on the Transportation Tax Commission. So with that, Vice Chair Parks.
Good afternoon, I'm Kevin Parks. I've just rejoined the Transportation Commission. I served 6 years previously, as well as the Bicycle Advisory Committee for 6 years. And I've previously performed bike mobility planning in San Antonio, Texas, as well as some other transportation planning along the one of the U.S. highway routes down near the Texas-Mexican border. And a lot of other experiences over the years, including overseas. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Commissioner Kraft.
Howdy, everybody. I'm Nick Kraft. What am I supposed to say?
Just a brief introduction of yourself, what you do, and maybe your time spent on commission. One or the other one.
I have my own business doing web design and IT work. And hi, Brian. We've met before. I'm a Ponderosa Trails resident. I can't remember exactly how we met, but we've had a chat before. Welcome. I served 2 terms on the Airport Commission at one time and one on the most recent Transportation Tax Commission. And here I am.
Thank you. Commissioner Morley.
Hi, Kate Morley. I'm the Deputy General Manager here at Mountain Line. I have a background in land use planning, and I think I've been on the commission for 2-ish years, but only officially in the Mountain Line role for a couple months.
Commissioner Kuhn.
Welcome. I'm Bob Kuhn. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for School District. I've been on the commission for a few years, just a couple too many 2 terms, but they let me. It's part of the school job. I've enjoyed it, and I've been part of the regional planning too. So.
Thank you. And Commissioner Burton.
Hi, I'm Brian. I have been here for about the last 3 years of the Open Space Commission. And as was indicated earlier, I am board president of the Ponderosa Trails Homeowners Association. So that's why we have met in the past. And I served as many terms as I could serve on the open space. They kicked me off. So I figured, oh, Julie talked me into coming over to the transportation when we were working together on a project. So happy to be here.
Happy to have you. And with that, that's commissioners. So let's move to maybe start with Jeff, city staff.
Sure, Jeff Bowman. I'm the city traffic engineer. I'm the staff liaison for this commission. I have lots of help, but you'll see me at every meeting. I have been here as long as Bob, I think, on the commission. Many years. Thanks, Julie.
And city engineer, Mr. Barrett.
Thank you, Julie. Yes, city engineer. Let's see, NAU engineering degree, worked for the city since '82. Yeah, I've been involved with the commission for quite a while. Welcome all. I very much appreciate your volunteering and all the work you do for this community. So thank you very much.
Lieutenant.
Hi, Frank Higgins, Lieutenant with the Police Department. Been on the commission, shoot, for a while. How long you been on, Jeff? 8 years?
Probably.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Thank you for always participating and attending these. How about our capital improvements engineer? I see some initials down there.
Yep. Let me turn my camera on. There I am. Yeah, so my name is Brett Peterson. I'm the capital improvements engineer. I've had the pleasure of working for the city for the past 29 years. Really enjoying my role and looking forward to increasing my role with the Transportation Commission as we move forward. I think historically, I've attended 1 or 2 meetings a year. I really anticipate that with the propositions 419 and 420 that I'll be presenting here a little bit later today, and a desire amongst city staff to create a capital improvements program committee, that your influence is going to be instrumental in our ability to move things forward. And I look forward to working very closely with Jeff and this commission to move things forward and figure out how we're going to spend a bunch of money over the next 21 years. So I'm looking forward to it.
That's a great charge. Thank you so much, Brett. I'm excited to hear from you this evening. I see Martin or Michigan. I'm not sure. I think it's Martin.
Hi, everyone. Martin Hintz. I'm the multimodal transportation planner for the city. I'm also the staff liaison for your 2 subcommittees, the Pedestrian Advisory Committee and the Bicycle Advisory Committee. Is this thing pointed right prior to?
Just this part.
Luckily, my forehead is my best feature.
There we go.
Prior to July 1st, I split my time between the city and the FMPO and now Metro Plan. Subsequent to July 1st, I'm working full-time for the city.
Exciting changes. Stacy, are you on this evening? I think that's Stacy SS.
Nope, that's me.
Stephanie.
Hey guys.
Okay.
Yep.
I was like, Stacy Salzberg. Okay. Stephanie Sardi. Steph.
Hi, Steph Sardi. I work under Jeff Bauman in traffic engineering. Been doing traffic commission with him ever since I started in 2013. I will be the person muting you if you are making noise in the background. So I'm sorry, but make sure you're unmuted when you decide to talk.
Thank you. And then I do believe we have a member of the public with us, or perhaps 2. Marco Spagnolo, are you joining us today as a member of the public?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And I believe, is there anyone that I missed? All right. Hearing none, roll call is complete. Thank you for doing that. It's great to see everyone's faces and just get a little bit of a background since we have a couple of newer members on our commission. All right, at this time, I would like to move into public comment. So this time, any member of the public may address the commission on any subject within our jurisdiction that is not on the meeting agenda. If you do have an item for the meeting agenda, if you would please wait until that agenda item to address the commission, appreciate it. Just to let you know, the Arizona Open Meeting Law prohibits the commission from discussing or taking any action on an item that is not on our prepared agenda. At this time, is there anyone from the public that would like to address the commission? All righty. We'll move next to approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from August 5th?
Hi, Julie, this is Kate. I'm happy to make that motion.
And I'll second it.
Okay. All right. And motion on the table, seconded by Commissioner Kuhn. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Let's move into item 2 on our agenda, which is new business. And I would like to welcome Brett Peterson, Capital Improvements Engineer, to present it on the 5-year program. I am so excited to have this today. So please, I'll turn it over to you, Brett.
Thank you, and commission members. I do really appreciate the opportunity to be here today to present an update related to propositions 419 and 420. This presentation will take about 15 minutes. There'll be plenty of time for questions afterwards if that works for y'all, and then we can dive right in. But I've given 4 presentations throughout the organization up prior to this one. Each of them have seen this same presentation that I'm about to give today, and I'm really excited about moving this thing forward. So as you'll recall, back in 2018, I will reference that you're probably familiar with these slides, of you anyway, that because they're the slides that were used by the City of Flagstaff and others to present the various propositions that were up for consideration by the citizens back in 2018. There were 3 propositions, 419, 420, and 421. The 2 I'm focusing on today are Prop 419 and 420. Proposition 419, connecting our community. The money for this particular effort will be used for roads, bicycle and pedestrian projects, as well as general projects like traffic signals, street lighting, and signage. It is a flat renewal of a tax that was approved originally back in 2000. That tax was set to expire in 2020, and the decision was made that we would get out in front of the voters in 2018 to extend that tax through 2041. I'm sure you're aware that these taxes, when they are up for renewal, are considered during even years. And so it made sense for us to expire this one in 2041 with the anticipation that if it's desired, citizens could approve an extension into 2042. The tax itself is 42.6 cents on a $100 purchase. And back in 2018, it was projected that we would raise approximately $266 million over the 21-year period. I want to highlight some of the roadway improvement components. Depicted in solid turquoise is West Route 66. I'm sure many of you are aware that West Route 66 is an ADOT route for a good chunk, but part of the Citizens Transportation Tax Commission input included improvements along that corridor, specifically looking at some of the intersections along this route and how we might be able to improve their function. It also included improvements along Butler Avenue from essentially Little America out to Sonawa Middle School. It included improvements along new roadway sections for John Wesley Powell Boulevard from the eastern end of JWP today near Pine Canyon out to the intersection of Butler and 4th. And then the other new road that was considered is the extension of John Wesley Powell from Lake Mary Road out to the airport. This map shows, as highlighted here, 36 of the 148 planned projects. Projects associated with new sidewalks shown in solid red, new bike lanes shown in dashed orange, new foot trail systems shown in solid turquoise, and then I believe the proposition included 7 crossings. This map shows 6. Pedestrian crossings at grade throughout the community. Many of you have been have seen this spreadsheet. It's directly taken out of our annual budget book. This is hot off the press information. Rick and I received our printed versions today, as a matter of fact. But to orient you in how to read that budget book, I just want to quickly go over the components of it. There's two sheets here. This particular section is for the streets and transportation component of the budget. Within streets and transportation, we have streets, highway user revenue funds, funded projects. We will be talking about that today, but that's the first item within the budget book. It includes last year's budget and then the amount that was spent. And then this is the column here that is the current fiscal year, FY21. And then the remaining 4 years of the 5-year program follow as we move outward. You'll notice down in this section here that there are almost no dollar values shown for transportation tax funded improvements. That's because this particular sheet references the 2020 or the 2000 tax, the old tax, that will sunset at the end of this year. And so what we projected are the funds from the old tax that would be available for the various components related to safety, streets, 4th Street overpass, and various foots projects. And then as I flip the page, you'll see a new set of sections, road repair and street safety, and the program there. We will not be talking about that today, but I'm more than happy to entertain conversation about that program as we move forward in future meetings. There's another section here that's specifically for Lone Tree Overpass, which is Proposition 420 that I'll get into here in just a few minutes. And then the meat of today's presentation is focused on this line item here of the roadway, pedestrian, bicycle, and safety improvements. Based on input received from the Citizens Transportation Tax Commission, there were various categories, including new street projects, street widening projects, street operations, bicycle and pedestrian projects, and then general improvements and partnering opportunities. So what Jeff Bauman and I have done previously was to go through the input that was received, the direction that was provided by the Citizens Transportation Commission and endorsed by City Council to populate how and where these dollar values would lie. So Jeff and I have gone through the 20-year program to define where at this point we felt it was appropriate for those funds to lie. We did receive some input from Sustainability Commission as an example, or the Sustainability Manager, to front load the Foots Trail, Sidewalk, Bike, and Ped program with about $2 million a year for the first 7 years. And then it would be a little over $1.1 million or under $1.1 million for the remaining years of the program. But that's how we read the budget book. All of that information is available online, and if you're interested in seeing the budget book and or these particular sheets, I can work with Jeff and make sure that you all have access to it. The initial thoughts on timing of some of the bike and ped projects include for the Butler Avenue widening. I literally just got off the phone, the Teams meeting, working through some of the scheduling component of this one. We currently have funding in FY21, which is the current fiscal year. And we anticipate that the project will be completed no later than FY25. 4th Street reconstruction. This is the money that we're going to use for improvements along 4th Street, just south of the new bridge over I-40. So as you're aware, that project is just about to wrap up, hopefully a little bit later this month. And then we've completed the design for the roadway improvements moving south between Solier and Sparrow. We anticipate that we will get that under construction, we're hoping, early in the spring. Ideally, Bob, for your benefit, we'd like to have those improvements primarily completed prior to the start of school a year from now. But that may be unrealistic, and we're doing everything we can to get this thing started sooner rather than later. But just so you're aware, we anticipate that improvement will be done later next year.
What, Brett,
Yes,
or do I have to use my hand?
No, you're good.
But we're gonna narrow it down to one lane and tighten it up while the construction's going on, just like you did the bridge, so the buses can get through? Or are we gonna close it?
No, and that's a really good point. I think we have to maintain traffic to an extent, and I'll be working with our project managers to make sure that we can accommodate things as necessary. I'm sure there's going to be some days where it's a full closure, but
Okay.
you certainly will be kept in the loop, and as necessary, we can accommodate much the way that we did previously. For the 4th Street Bridge project, the emergency vehicles and the like. So,
And I take it you won't start Butler until you finish 4th, so you don't have both going on at the same time.
that is correct.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
Thanks.
yeah. So where we're at on 4th Street reconstruction is we finished the design. ADOT has now wrapped up their project, and so we can get in there. We didn't want to have a city contractor working at the same time as an ADOT contractor within that tight area. So we waited for them to finish their work. We're going to start ours almost immediately. The Butler Widening piece, where we're at in that is we anticipate that's going to go out as a CMAR contract. We'll get the CMAR contract as a construction manager at risk procurement method that allows us to hire not only the design consultant, but the contractor that will be building that roadway. We think there's some benefit to moving forward with that project. The current budget is combined about $10 million. So, and it's going to be a big project, and it's going to be one that is nice when it's finished, and it's going to be somewhat of a nuisance for several while it's under construction. But I think we'll be able to work with the contractor and the design consultant, preferably throughout the design effort, to make sure that we can minimize the impacts to the best of our ability. The Lone Tree and Butler, or Lone Tree Butler to Pine Knoll piece, we've earmarked some money in FY24 and FY26. That effort is primarily to make improvements south of Butler Avenue in conjunction with the timing of the Lone Tree Overpass project, which is Proposition 420, and I'll dive into the details of that one here in just a second. Dark skies lighting, we're going to get after that right away. The number I've been told is that there's 3,500 or so street lights that need to be brought into compliance with the dark skies lighting program, and so we've front loaded the funding that was allocated for that effort through the years FY21 through 27. Last bullet point there, second to the last, is the JWP Lake Mary to the airport. We currently have that one positioned to begin design in FY25 and be completed by FY27. There again, those are the types of things that, this is an example of a project that if the Transportation Commission felt it was favorable to move that one up a little bit or delay it a little bit, we certainly want to have those conversations with you all and figure out where the appropriate place there is. But Jeff and I felt it was important to get that one on the books. And then finally, as I talked about, the front loading of the first 7 years of the bike and ped improvements. at about $2 million per year for those first 7, and then about 1.1 million thereafter. Moving into Proposition 420 and its update, bridging the tracks. And the money will be used for the construction of the Lone Tree Overpass from Butler Avenue up to Route 66. This project will include trails, sidewalks, and bike lanes. This is a brand new tax. The tax is 23 cents on $100 purchase and will extend through 2040. The Proposition 420 is expected to generate $132 million over that 20-year period. As many of you may recall, I've been involved in 2 studies to date. The first study that the city did, and it was completed in March of 2006, was the Lone Tree Corridor study. To orient you, this is the southern end of our connection to JWP down near Pine Canyon. As we move further north, this is the community college. Here's where we would cross either over or under the interstate. And then we would tie back into existing Lone Tree right near the Forest Service greenhouse facility driveway. This is the greenhouse facility. And then improvements would occur on existing Lone Tree's alignment all the way up to Butler Avenue. All of those improvements on existing Lone Tree, again, from Butler down to Pine Knoll, would be funded through Proposition 419 funds. And then the Proposition 420 funds for the overpass would complete everything north of Butler. When we broke it into the various components of what and when and how, I mean, we have a traffic interchange, we have the piece south of the interstate, the piece north of the interstate, the piece along existing Lone Tree, and then the overpass. We thought, which of these could we realistically entertain and gather more detailed information on? And the thought back in the day was that we would pursue the Lone Tree Overpass definition, which led us to procure a consultant and complete a study in 2010 that very clearly defined the components of what that Lone Tree Overpass would consist of. This is an exhibit that just shows the 2 funding sources, Proposition 420 on the top, in the red is 419. And then one of my project managers is very good with our GIS software and has taken the line work out of the Lone Tree Overpass study and laid it over an aerial image in this vicinity. So to orient you, this is Butler Avenue. Currently, this is Colorado. That's where the extension of Lone Tree would begin. As we move further to the north, there's this solid line here. That would be the southern boundary of the bridge. The bridge would accommodate us, would give us the ability to extend Eldon Street underneath to connect this portion of the existing neighborhood to this portion, if that's desired. It would also allow us to realign the spur track that currently feeds the old tank farm site. I'm sure many of you are aware the tanks have been removed, but the current property owner has an interest in maintaining that spur track access for a future operation. And if we left it in its existing alignment, which is here, it would require us to get up in the air too quickly, and our bridge would have to be much longer than it's proposed to be. So we've worked with BNSF to show the realignment of that spur track, and I was in a meeting earlier today, and they said they still had an interest in maintaining that spur. So I don't see that that's going to go away. It's a little difficult to see, but we've drawn in the line work for the Ria de Flag project. This narrow section here is the underground box culvert. And then where it widens out is the open channel section. So the red flag will cross underneath this bridge structure. And then to accommodate all of this as well, we have to vertically relocate the existing railroad tracks, both to the south and down. So what we've shown here in the dark is the new location of the railroad tracks. The lighter lines are the existing tracks. Again, we'll move them south and lower them to get the clearance necessary under this bridge so that we don't have to raise this intersection of Route 66 significantly. These slides were prepared a couple of weeks ago, so they're slightly outdated, but we have requested the statements of qualification seeking a design build team. The SOQs were received on September 24th. We received 4 SOQs, and we're excited about being able to select a consultant to move forward with soliciting or submitting a fee associated with this. And then we anticipate right now that we'll be in front of council in December of this year to award that design build team contract. As I've stated many times, and it's a broken record, but one more time for your all's sake, is that we have been directed that the roadway will be open by November of 2026. That was the promise that was made to the voters, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that happens. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions or revert back to slides.
Commissioner, let's see, Kraft, I believe you have a question or comment.
Yes, Brett, the change you said to the height and position of the tracks, is that allowing for the businesses north of the overpass to remain? Or because originally they were going to have to go to make the traffic work on Route 66?
Correct. So there's 3 properties that would be required for this project. So just to orient you, this is Chicane Restaurant. This is CD&E, the engineering firm. Used to be the old Circle Q.
Okay. Those 2
are safe. The 3 that need to come out are right here at this intersection. This building, I think it's Easy Used Car Sales. It was an old gas station that was converted to a car sale lot. And then I believe it's the mattress store. But anyway, it's those 3 buildings that would be full takings and have to come out. And that's primarily has to do with access in and out of those properties at this major intersection.
And how will that intersection work, Route 66 to the overpass? Will it just be a standard kind of T with turn lanes and so on?
Yeah, essentially, yes. We're working through the details on that right now, trying to define very specifically how many turn lanes, signal timings, et cetera, that would be necessary to accommodate the best flow of traffic through there.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Certainly.
I've got a couple more questions here. We're going to Commissioner Morley and then to Commissioner Kuhn. So please go ahead, Kate.
Thank you. My question is about the bike ped funding that's available and how it relates to what's coming out of the active transportation master plan. So I know that some of those documents went to the public, and my understanding is that there's some legal obligation to what was shared with the public. I'm wondering if there's still the priorities that are in the ATMP, and if not, if there's flexibility to adjust. And then because we have 2 committees that report to us, I'm wondering if they're supportive of those projects as well.
I may look for some help on answering that one. Martin, do you want to speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, I can dive in. I think really there are two different pots of money in that reflected in the 5-year capital plan. One of them is the money that's essentially being carried forward from the previous transportation tax. So there's a handful of in particular FOOTS projects that are funded. Yeah, that shows it there that it's really a carryover from the previous tax. And then the other group of projects we kind of start clean with the new transportation tax, and for the moment they do pretty closely reflect the projects that we've identified as priorities and the ones we want to build first through the active transportation master plan. I won't say that is absolutely, for certain that will be built just exactly that way. I think there's a little bit of room to make some adjustments, particularly as we move into the time beyond the first couple of years. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Kuhn.
Brett, is there any expanded sidewalks for the Elk Run area, the Elk Run Street? Because we know we have kids that walk to the middle school. I was wondering when they get down in the Fox Glen area, there's sidewalks.
I'll take that one too if you want, Brett.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I think when we identified sidewalks that are missing, it was only for major streets, which include minor collectors and up. So in the Elk Run neighborhood, I don't think that any of those streets count as
Elk Run's not considered a major hole. All right.
I know where's Elk Run? Is it? I'm thinking it's like right behind where I live, off of Fox Glen.
Yeah, it's above. So Elk Run's the one that runs up around it, and it has a partial sidewalk on it, and then it stops about a third way through there. So yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we just given the kind of the limits of the funding and our ability to deliver projects and build sidewalks, most local residential streets like that, we have not identified where sidewalks are missing or made any plans to complete them.
Okay. Thanks.
Vice Chair Parks.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I was considering something that Martin was saying about funding, and I think I've resolved it for myself.
Right. Here. If you would, if there are any other commissioners that have a question or comment, just let me know in the meeting chat. You just put a Q or a C. I don't want to miss anyone. Commissioner Spice, thanks for joining us. I saw you. You joined us through Brett's presentation, so that's great. Welcome. Brett, this is fantastic. Thank you so much for putting this together and sharing this with me, with us. I would love to see these budget sheets. So if that's something, Jeff, that you can send to the commission, that would be great.
I can do that.
Thanks. So one of your questions, Brett, was talking about moving up the JWP section from Lake Mary Road to the airport. And I think that was in 24 or 25. And you were asking, or you had suggested that maybe we need to have a discussion about whether that should be accelerated. And as part of that conversation that I'd like to have, I wondered how the loss in sales tax revenue recently may have influenced budgeting, or what you're thinking about or considering, because we do have that loss in sales tax revenue.
Yeah, so yeah, thank you for that. I think we are working essentially weekly with the finance group to understand the impacts of COVID-19 on tax revenues. I have been told specifically that the existing transportation tax revenue has dropped by about $2 million. That said, I've also been told that the months leading up to COVID-19, we had brought in more money than they had originally anticipated. So I can't say it's a wash right now. It's something that we're watching very, very closely. We're trying to be smart about how we move forward with the construction of various projects. As an example, we postponed the construction of one of the final road repair and street safety tax funded projects. We still think we can finish that next year, but to do so, we're going to have to break it into 2 separate projects. That being said, there's a lot of detail there that I really want to engage and inform this group with some of those decisions as we move forward, just to make sure that we're doing what you all expect that we should be doing. I threw out the JWP example just strictly as an example. But again, I think those are some of the things that you guys can help us work through. I don't think you disagree with the fact that we front loaded the dark skies lighting component, but there again, we would value your input if you wanted to suggest doing something different. So I'm just excited that that the commission is going to have significant involvement as we move through this thing. I think there's going to be a great discussion coming up soon about exactly what the Butler Avenue widening project is going to look like. I can tell you from a capital improvements engineer's perspective, if you ask me what's that going to look like, I would say it's going to look very much like the eastern and western side of Butler Avenue on either side of the narrow stretch, right? So the piece in front of Little America and the piece that runs in front of Sonawa Middle School is probably representative of what we would anticipate that roadway would become. I can tell you that when I gave this presentation to the Sustainability Commission a week or so ago, there was a little bit of concern about adding 2 lanes in each direction. And it's those kinds of conversations that I really want to engage some very thoughtful and serious discussion about what does this roadway become when we move it forward, so that when we build the project, it is the right project and it's the project that's supported by the community. So.
Thank you for that, Brett. I've got a few questions here. Commissioner Barton, then Spice, then Morley. So Commissioner Barton.
Yeah, I guess more of a comment than it was a question. J.W. Powell to the 1,400 homes south of Lake Mary Road and east of 17 is very important roadway. We sat with the fire department and talked about wildland fire and fires in this area. And currently those homes, which covers about 3,500 people, have 2 exits. And that's Lake Mary Road at High Country and J.W. Powell at 17. I've been through the fires, and for this area, that's not adequate. So whatever you need to do to get J.W. Powell in from a safety point of view is something that I would definitely put an encouragement to. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Burton. I'm sorry, I mispronounced your last name earlier. Thank you. Go ahead, Brett.
Yeah, thank you for that, Commissioner. I think I do want to be clear that the extension of JWP between Lake Mary Road and the airport currently does not include funding for the extension of High Country out to that roadway. that question has specifically been asked, and Jeff and myself have looked into it, and our recollection from the Citizens Transportation Tax Commission input was that the extension of High Country is not included in that funding source. It doesn't mean that it's not a viable component, but we would have to find funding for that effort.
Right. Commissioner Spice.
Thank you, Julie. And I just wanted to check, you mentioned the stretch to the airport from Lake Mary Road. Would that be in conjunction with the section where 4th Street dead ends into Butler? I know the new bridge over I-40 was recently finished, and that looks amazing. And was just wondering the timing on the connectivity there.
Sure. So great question. And yeah, we need to be clear on that. So let me go back to the slide. Hope I'm going in the right direction. Here we go. So again, I want to be clear that the funding for JWP from Lake Mary out to the airport is whole. We have the money in Proposition 419 to build that piece. The other piece, we only have 40% of the funding that we anticipate is going to be necessary to build this section of the roadway. The other 60% of that funding, the way it was drafted, is to come from the development that will occur out in that area. There's a state land piece that is up for auction. I believe it's later this month. NAU just picked up a fairly large parcel through I don't know that it was a donation, but it was a request by a private property owner for NAU to own the land. You know, if it was to remain state land, we can't require the state to participate in a community facilities district or an improvement district, if you will. Likewise, the NAU property, we couldn't either. So exactly where the remaining 60% of the funds necessary to complete this come from is very, very much so, in my opinion, going to drive when this extension actually gets constructed. But we are actively working on that effort, and we will have a presentation to update council on the status of that effort fairly soon. So.
Great, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Commissioner Morley.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I missed this, but I'm hoping you can talk to me a little bit more about smaller projects that might be more things like spot improvements rather than some of these huge projects, and how that fits into the funding and the decision-making process about years that it will happen in. I'm thinking, for more clarification, I'm thinking about things like, you know, I'll use the project example that was the Lockett Road project. You know, maybe not a total redesign or a huge project, but still something big that needed to be considered. Or I assume there's a lot of small projects built into this funding as well.
Okay, so there's as it relates to the new tax moving forward, under each of these categories, we've tried to be specific about some of the various improvements. So JWP Lake Mary to the airport, as an example, Butler Avenue widening, 4th Street reconstruction, Butler Lone Tree between Butler and Pine Knoll. Then we get into some more broad category type definitions. Signal and traffic management. I mean, it's specific, but it's not specific to a particular location. Funding is in there for neighborhood plans, and it's not a huge amount, but there's funding in there that we need to move forward. Lockett 4th roundabout, we have some funding available. Country Club Oakmont intersection, there's some funding in out years that's available. So we've tried to populate this as we move forward. And I mean, several of you are very familiar with our budget process, right? We're a physical-based budget that runs from July 1st through June 30th of the following year. The process to develop that budget begins right now. Every year in October, November, we really start thinking about what that budget is going to look like. And unfortunately, in the past, my presentations to this particular group have been later in the year, like February, March, or April, where you all didn't have an opportunity to help us populate what this thing looks like. And I think Jeff and I are committed, and our city engineer are committed to engaging you in this process, taking your input, and truly trying to populate the details down here that reflect your desires and your input. The general and partnering opportunities funds, there's $750,000 in there every year for the 21 years of the tax. And we're going to need some help to figure out how to spend that. And you know, priorities and are there opportunities to partner with a fellow agency? And the great example here would be the 4th Street Bridge replacement project. If you'll recall, ADOT said, hey, we're getting ready to do some repairs on the 4th Street Bridge. We think we want to rebuild it. We're going to make it a little bit longer to accommodate 3 lanes of traffic at some point in the future along I-40. And we responded with, well, that's great, but if you're going to lengthen those bridges, we'd really like you to widen those bridges so that we could accommodate 2 lanes of traffic in each direction and the pedestrian and bicycle improvements on the edge that this community has been screaming for. And so the city of Flagstaff and ADOT entered into an IGA that essentially 50-50 split. And that was a $8.5 million or more contribution from the city of Flagstaff to partner there. But we couldn't have built that bridge by ourselves. But I'm thrilled that we were able to partner, take advantage of that opportunity and the need from another funding agency to leverage that funding and move that project forward. It's a beautiful bridge, and I'm sure you've all seen it. Can't wait till we finish the southern piece between Sparrow and Solier, and it's really coming together well, I think. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. I am very excited about rolling up our sleeves and supporting staff in reviewing of these projects in the budget moving forward. So thank you again for putting this together. I'd like to do a quick call to the public. Are there any comments or questions from the public at this time? Okay. And I don't see anything in the chat or hands from other commissioners. So with that, I think we can wrap up this agenda item and talk about a couple next steps. I think there should be some sort of public celebration of 4th Street, the bridge. In this time of COVID, it's unfortunate we can't have a big gathering and do a ribbon cutting for that project, because it is such a huge improvement for our community, and just a great example of partnering with ADOT to improve, take it just a step further, particularly for ped and bike across the bridge. So that's outstanding. There's something interesting. You caught my ear, Brett, and you said that the Sustainability Commission had talked about the geometry of Butler between the TI and 4th Street, South 4th Street. And I would very much like to keep this on our agenda for discussion. If there are discussions about what the typical section looks like along that corridor. I'm very curious and would like to have a conversation about that with my fellow commissioners. Let's see here. Just going back through my notes, keeping track of everything. One comment I had, as we look at these projects and budgeting, I know that, or I suspect that you're also reviewing what projects Water Services has in the works. So I think as we have these discussions about priorities of those projects, I think we also need to consider which projects include utilities and making sure that those utilities could also shift if there was an adjustment to the capital plan. All right. I am excited about moving on to the active transportation master plan, and I'm curious about the Lone Tree Butler to Pine Knoll section that is in the capital plan, and I know the ATMP has looked at that section. So I think that might be a good segue into our next agenda item. Thank you again, Brett. And Bob, Commissioner Kuhn, I see your hand is up. Did you have another question?
You know, Brett, keep me involved with the Butler. That concerns me, if they're talking single lanes, the number of buses and the amount of traffic and the movement we have from those apartments and the proposed other ones that are coming there, and the kids moving on to Knowles and Sanawa. You know, I think as a school district, we need to be involved and help with that decision. That, you know, coming past Little America, you know, the proposed development there on the right, you know, that's very concerning.
Yeah, and I don't want to alarm you. I just want you to be aware of the types of input that we are receiving, and it's a sign of the times. Things are different these days, and the accommodation of the bike movement, the pedestrian movement, the bus movements, Mountain Line or FUSD, all need to be taken into consideration. And I think for us, we as a group need to recognize that there are those interests, and we need to give them their attention. I do not believe that we would go to a one-lane section, one lane in each direction, typical section. It doesn't match what we've got in our city engineering standards, but I can appreciate those that would prefer to see less cars and a decrease in greenhouse gas emissions would be striving for less cars on the roadway. And I mean, somebody put it very bluntly to me probably a year ago. It was like, you know, you guys keep building these roadways. What do you think is going to happen? People are going to drive on them. And it was like, well, yeah, that's what we do. We build roadways so people can drive on them. But that being said, are we encouraging greenhouse gas emissions? Are we encouraging people to jump in their car? I can appreciate where the other side of the coin is arguing that maybe we need to just be a little more holistic in how we move this thing forward. So really all I'm trying to do, Bob, is just put it out there that there are different perspectives that I would like us to take into consideration. And I think now more than ever, especially after this COVID thing and the way that we've been able to communicate pretty significantly, that the way we communicate and engage public input and get feedback is changing, and we need to adapt to that. So I'll leave it at that and appreciate the input. We will keep you involved. Thank you.
Commissioner Spice, did you have a comment or question?
I was wondering, you mentioned a 4th Street celebration, and I know the community there, that would be an exciting event, and just curious what you had in mind or what realistic options there were.
I just suggested it because it is it's a huge accomplishment, a demonstration of partnering. I don't know if the city does have something planned, but I always like to find an opportunity to celebrate great work and great partnering. Is there anything planned, Jeff, Rick, or
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'd be glad to jump in. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, so we're all excited about celebrating this accomplishment in partnership with ADOT, of course. I think it was just this week, Brett could correct me, but we have our PIO officer from the city working with ADOT's PIO officer. And we're trying to arrange dates. We're trying to arrange, what would be the talking points, who would be talking, does the governor want to participate? So you can imagine the logistics associated with this, but we're in the midst of trying to figure it all out, to make a long answer short.
Thank you, Rick. Any final comments? Otherwise, we'll move to the next agenda item. Commissioner Parks, Vice Chair Parks.
Just a minute, there we go. Commissioner's fine. Anyway, I had sort of an interest, kind of a creative idea for part of a celebration. I'm not a motorist myself, but I know there's an app out there that's crowdsourced. Many of you may be familiar with it. It's a lot like Google Maps, except that you can input your comments while you're driving, or hopefully while you're pulled over somewhere. However, it might be interesting to invite motorists' comments during those first week or two of using the new 4th Street Bridge.
Yeah, I'd like to hear most of them. We've actually gotten some negative ones right now about no improvements south of the bridge, including Solier, which is an opportunity for me to chime in that we do have a project that's 100% designed, ready to go out to bid, which will widen 4th Street south of the new bridges through the Solier intersection down to the Sparrow intersection, with new signal at Solier for sure. You see the development going on the west side of 4th Street right now, so we'll have a 4th leg driveway at the new Solier intersection. A lot of work going on there, so if you could help us spread that word, I just thought I'd jump in, Commissioner Parks, and share that information, because again, if we could share that word to the community that we're not done yet. We're budgeted. We got another project that's going to hit the streets, and we'll be building over the winter and hopefully get it wrapped up this coming spring. But sorry, I kind of leapfrogged on you on that one, but very negative comments coming in on, the lack of the city foresight to have built anything south of the bridge. So just sharing that. Thank you.
We'll make sure to let our circles know that there are projects in the works to extend those improvements.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Right. Item 2B, City of Flagstaff Active Transportation Master Plan. And this is something that Martin has been working on diligently with Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee and doing outreach with other commissions. And with that, I'll turn it over to Martin.
Thanks, Madam Chair. We have been working on this with your 2 subcommittees and other groups as well. And so I thought this seemed like a good time to give you some information and an update on where we are in that process. And in a nutshell, we have created a draft document, and we're beginning to have internal conversations about what that document looks like and what it says and what it includes. And so I thought for this evening's presentation that I would give you kind of an outline of what's in it so far, as well as an idea of what's to come in the way of process to move this forward to final adoption. So in a real quick, active transportation master plan is just simply a detailed guide to promote active transportation in Flagstaff, and that is specifically walking and biking. And more to the point, that this plan will establish policies that are supportive of walking and biking for the city to follow. It will list detailed strategies and actions to become more walk and bike friendly, something that we've not had, but it will list specific steps to take to become walk and bike friendly. It will identify physical infrastructure improvements, as we've talked about before, that will be funded through the 29 million of the transportation sales tax, and it helps hold us accountable by setting outcomes and targets for us to shoot for over the next 20 years. This master plan is officially a specific plan, and specific plans, as this little pyramid diagram illustrates, function in kind of that middle ground between the high level vision and concepts of the regional plan and the on the ground details of implementation in documents such as the zoning code, engineering standards, and the 5-year capital plan. And I might add that the city has had a number of planning documents over the years that talk about promoting walking and biking, but they rarely go even much beyond just saying that about how we are supposed to become more pedestrian and bicycle friendly. So this document is really intended to fill in some of those details and provide very, very specific guidance for the city to move forward. In the ATM document, it recommends an approach to planning for walking and biking as well as transportation in general. Here are some of the main points: to be more transformational than incremental. So we want to have big changes, and I think this relates to a presentation you'll have at your next meeting relative to the city declaring a climate emergency, and really the imperative for us to do things that are more transformational than incremental to address climate change. It recommends that we favor or prioritize walking and biking as transportation modes, that we should take a more well-rounded approach to transportation planning and include in our deliberation other community considerations. It suggests that we pursue a wide range of solutions for mobility. People get around in a lot of different ways, and it's important for us to acknowledge that in transportation planning. TDM is a guiding principle. TDM is travel demand management. Very briefly, it's the concept that we discourage use of single occupant vehicle as a travel mode and encourage more sustainable modes like walking and biking and transit. And then the final principle or approach is that we don't overbuild for cars. You started to get into a really interesting conversation there at the end of Brett's presentation about when we build asphalt, people tend to drive on it or park on it. Is there a way we can think about that more carefully so we're not overbuilding for cars at the expense of other community values, including walking and biking? This gives you an idea of what's in the document so far. There are 8 chapters: an introduction, 2 is current conditions, vision, goals, and policies, strategies and actions, where it gets into kind of those detailed steps. Infrastructure lays out the facilities we want to build. Implementation talks about how we do all this stuff, outcomes, measures, and targets. And then finally, planning and design considerations. And I'll give the rest of my presentation here, I'll give you a little bit of detail about some of what's in some of these chapters. Policies, there's a number of them, and this is kind of an abbreviated and excerpted version of it. This is not all of them, and it's not all of them in their entirety, but it gives you kind of a flavor. And I think when you look at policies, it's useful to read the policy by beginning with the phrase, it is the city's policy to, and then read the policy. So for example, if I say it is the city's policy to provide an exemplary level of accommodation for pedestrians and bicycles, and you get a sense of what that policy means and how it should direct the city in its actions. Other policies that are in there include promoting equity, having a range of transportation options, maintaining our facilities in good condition, building safe and comfortable networks for walking and biking, including crossings, the TDM approach, which is to reduce demand for single occupant vehicles while simultaneously increasing options for walking and biking in transit. And then finally, to consider all the impacts of transportation, including community character, sustainability, equity, and economic vitality, in addition to the movement of vehicles when we think about transportation planning. We've created 6 goals. They're listed here. Complete networks for walking and biking. Take care of what we have, which begins with maintenance, but includes other things as well. Cultivate a supportive environment in Flagstaff for walking and biking. Improve safety. Promote land use and transportation planning practices that are supportive of walking and biking. And then finally, assess how we're doing so we can measure our progress or see where we need to make improvements. Strategies and actions I mentioned are kind of the detailed steps we need to take. There are 64 strategies currently organized around those 6 goals. And I did not take the time to count them all for you, but there are hundreds and hundreds of specific actions underneath those strategies. And we tried to write them to be as specific as possible so that someone picking up the document next week or next decade, it's very clear what ought to be done, and it avoids ambiguity and kind of passive constructions that make it less clear about what needs to be done and tries to be very specific. We talked a little bit about the infrastructure. This document really serves to populate the first 5 years of the capital improvements plan, as well as give us an idea of how we want the next 15 years after that to go. So it's really the document that talks about how that $29 million is spent. That's not the only source of pedestrian and bicycle projects. We've also identified where they would be built as part of future private development or as part of future capital improvement projects. There's a long section of the document in Chapter 8, which are the planning and design considerations. They are essentially an outline or a recognition of other aspects of planning, design, and development that directly or indirectly affect walking and biking and the pedestrian and bicycle environment. And they're kind of divided into 4 different levels, beginning with how we do overall transportation planning and our approach. The second level is how we look at land use, urban form, and development patterns. And maybe the most obvious example of that is the discussion about density and mixed use land uses that promote walking and biking over low density and sprawl land uses. The third level is street character and design. So obviously how we design our streets, what they look like, and how they function has a significant impact on walking and biking. And then finally, the final level is the design of walking and biking facilities themselves. And really, it gets into a fair amount of details about some of the principles and guidelines and design characteristics of ped and bike infrastructure that helps make it more successful. The document lists a number of outcomes. I won't go through them individually here. Underneath each one of those outcomes, there are a handful of measures. Some of them are objective measures, some are more subjective. For example, if one of the outcomes is that people can travel anywhere in the community by walking and biking on safe, comfortable, and efficient networks, one of the measures might be what's our percentage completion of sidewalks around the community or bike lanes. If we say that we want the outcome to be walking and biking is safe and comfortable, some of the measures for that outcome are the number of pedestrian and bicycle crashes with vehicles, or the responses to surveys about where people tell us how comfortable or uncomfortable they are walking and biking around town. Beyond that, we're looking at more specific targets. So this gives us something to shoot for and a way to measure our progress. We've divided them into 3 timeframes, 5, 10, and 20 years. And there are exactly 6 measures that we're looking at that are, most of them are listed here. The first one is a combined mode share. So that's the number of trips in Flagstaff that are made by either transit, walking, or biking. That number is currently at 27%. And over the next 20 years, our target is to double that to 54%. The second target is pedestrian and bicycle crashes. Here we want to reduce the number to about 40 crashes annually. Currently, we average 80 between ped and bike crashes. And then for all those years, we want to have no ped or bike fatalities. And the final target relates to our status as a walk and bicycle-friendly community. We are currently bronze for walk and silver for bike. And over the next 20 years, we would like to increase that to gold and platinum. I'm not really leaving much space in here for people to comment, but if you'd like to interrupt with a comment or a question, please feel free and just type in the comment box, and the chair will recognize you. And I certainly don't mind being interrupted in the middle. This gives you an idea of some of the next steps. As I mentioned, we're going through internal review now. That could take up to a couple of months. We'd like to release a document to the public for public review and comment. We are legally mandated to have a period of 60 days where that's available. During that time, we will do our best to reach out to boards and commissions and community groups, et cetera, to make presentations to them. We'll also schedule a series of public meetings, which in this day and age will be conducted virtually. In some ways, that gives us a bit of an advantage because it logistically is much easier to organize a Teams meeting for the public than it is to organize an actual in-person meeting at a physical location. Of course, there are drawbacks to our approach as well, but given that it's easier logistically, we have opportunity to do more of them rather than just a couple. We might be able to have more and increase people's opportunity to participate. There's a formal process that will start sometime around February and March that involve the pedestrian and bicycle committees, this commission, as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission. Even before we get to that formal process, we will plan to make regular updates and have regular discussions with you pretty much from here on in until the plan is adopted. And we can talk a little bit about how that goes and how you want to approach it. For example, one option might be to divide the plan into sections and schedule a different section for each one of your meetings. Or we could take an entire meeting and really dive into the details for a solid 2 hours and have that as the only agenda item. So we'll have those conversations, and that really is up to you how you want to go about that. But between now and when that formal process kicks off, we plan to have discussions with this group as well as the other groups. All that leads up to a formal adoption at City Council, which is done by resolution, which we think we can get to in April. I would like to talk a little bit about one aspect of the Active Transportation Master Plan, which will probably be a standalone document, but will be adopted as part of it. Actually, there are 2. One is the Foots Master Plan, and the other one is a Bikeways Master Plan. We've been working on this with the Bicycle Advisory Committee for the last couple of months. And so I'll give you just a quick idea of some of the concepts and ideas that we have in that Bikeways plan. We're looking at implementing what's called a low-stress network. Low stress means that bicyclists of any age or ability we'd feel comfortable on using most of the network. We're really targeting this toward the group of the population that is at 60% in the middle that is interested but concerned in bicycling. And this is based on a concept developed in Portland. We've got a small percentage of the population, less than 7%, who are hardcore bicyclists at one end of the spectrum, and then probably a third of the population at the other that for a variety of reasons don't ride a bicycle or are not interested in riding a bicycle. That leaves that 60% in the middle that's interested but concerned. And what they really need is a low stress or comfortable network to ride on. They're really somewhat averse to riding in traffic on busy streets or through crowded intersections. Low stress network is based on the separation principle. On low speed, low volume streets, like the one illustrated here looks like a residential street, most bicyclists are comfortable riding with traffic, so we don't need to have any kind of special facilities. As speed and volume of traffic increase, we require more separation. So in the moderate levels, bike lanes are appropriate, and it provides some dedicated space on the roadway for bicyclists that keep them away from traffic. What most communities are learning that as speeds and volumes increase beyond that, that 60% is not particularly comfortable even being in a dedicated bike lane, that they'd like some sort of protection or separation from traffic. And it's on that basis that we've been working on the planned network. We've divided Bikeways into a hierarchy of 4 different levels. The first 2 are somewhat similar. They're the primary and secondary are really the main commuter routes for getting around Flagstaff and for supporting bicycle travel. 3rd and 4th are more like, you can think of them as collector roadways. So they get people between neighborhoods or districts and from where they live onto the main network of primary and secondary. Here's what we've come up with. This shows both existing roads and future roads. You can see primary in dark blue all the way down to the 4th level in light blue. And if I highlight just the primary and secondary, it would look like this. So this would be your main bicycle network for getting around town. In the interest of branding, all of these bikeways would have names. So for example, if we talk about the University Bikeway, they're on the west side, that would be a consistent signed, branded route for people to take. So it kind of takes the burden of wayfinding out of the bicyclist, and all you need to do, for example, to get downtown, if you live in Presidio, is to follow the University Bikeway to the Beaver Bikeway or the Milton Bikeway, and that will take you into downtown. And you don't need to worry about making turns or following directions or any of that on your way. There are other implications of having that hierarchy, and we would look at the higher levels of bikeways as being higher priorities for completion. They would be more likely to get separated or protected facilities. For maintenance, we would expect that those would be maintained first or at a higher level than the lower level bikeways. For closures and detours, we would expect that more of an effort be made either to keep them open for bicyclists or to provide a reasonable detour while they are closed. And then, as I mentioned, it serves a good function for wayfinding, so people can use the system to get wherever they need to go for commuting and use a bicycle for purposeful transportation. And really that wayfinding that I described is one of the ways that we overcome a barrier for bicycling for that 60%. We've got it divided up into a variety of facilities. These are some of the linear ones. There are 3 main types: shared streets, where cyclists share the road with motor vehicles. Dedicated facilities include bike lanes, where you're still on the roadway, but you have your own space. And then finally, protected or separated facilities, where there's some kind of a barrier between you and traffic, either a physical fence or a wall, or you're separated horizontally by additional space. Also, intersections and crossings are important. So there's a variety of potential facilities that make it more comfortable and safe for bicyclists to get through intersections and across busy roadways. I won't go through all of these, but we have more detail in the document itself, in the Bikeways plan, that talks about what these things are, where it's appropriate to use them, and then provide some examples of in the way of images from other communities. And don't bother trying to read this plan too carefully, but this just shows the variety of facilities that would go to make up the overall bikeway network. For phasing, we've got it planned over 20 years. The intent would be to complete the primary and secondary bikeways as soon as possible. Also to build some high visibility, impactful projects. And I'm thinking here something that's separated or protected to give people an idea of how that works and to kind of build excitement for the system. And then finally, to pull the whole thing together through branding, identification, and signing. So the network kind of hangs together and is very obvious and intuitive in terms of how to maneuver on it. I will mention one other thing about phasing. There's kind of an imperative for us to get this information together and out. As Brett presented in the earlier presentation, we are working on a number of roadway plans, and if we're going to do something different than on those new roadways, other than just standard bike lanes, and I think there's a good reason for us to think about that, then we have to give some thought to this plan and get this plan together and advanced with the public, so we can do that with the roads that are already in the pipeline. And I might just mention that 4th Street does have some elements of protection that were built in for bikes, so we're starting to think about it and go in that direction. And then these last few slides just kind of illustrate how the system progresses over the years. So this is what the existing network looks like, and it's divided by the hierarchy. You can see it's a pretty decent system, but there are definitely some gaps. Within 5 years, we want to expand the network and close some of the critical gaps, even more so over the 10-year time frame. In years 11 through 20, we start enhancing facilities and start to see some of the future roadways get built around the perimeter of the city. And then beyond 20 years is really the time frame when things get complete, although we don't have necessarily funding or projects identified to do that. I will also mention that so far in our planning for capital projects, we've thought of bike lanes as being more or less comprised of bike lanes and foot trails. And obviously with the concept that I've kind of spelled out for you here tonight, we're going much beyond that. We've not sat down and done cost estimates for all of this, but it's going to be something beyond what we can manage in the 29 million from the transportation tax over the next 20 years. I think we can rearrange some of the funding in the first couple of years to pay for some of the first improvements, but we'll have to find other ways to pay for other improvements if we expect to meet the kind of that phasing schedule that we just flipped through. I think there are some possibilities of grants and other funding sources that we'll have to be mindful of and try to tap into. There's also a role for private development and public capital projects to build part of it. In fact, if you look at, like in the central area, for example, some of the most critical pieces of the bikeway are part of other projects like the Rio to Flag project or the Butler project or the Lone Tree Overpass. So we don't have to have all the funding for all of this ourselves, but we need to be mindful of when other projects move forward that we're implementing elements of this plan. So that is the final slide. I have no more for you, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Martin. Outstanding presentation. You had said, or I heard you say that you're looking at extracting out the Bikeways planning as a separate document to the active transportation master plan, but there would still be a section in the ATMP. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, that's correct. And I still need to work out some of the details with the city's comprehensive planning manager, who is Sarah Dector. But I think that the ATMP can stand alone as a document and can reference and incorporate by reference a separate document, which is the Bikeways plan. So they're both of them are part of the plan. It just logistically makes it easier if they're two different documents.
Okay, thank you. Got a question, comment, Commissioner Morley, and then Vice Chair Parks.
Thank you. I want to say I'm really excited about this plan, and it's coming close and can't express that enough. A couple comments. One, I think my only suggestion might be, I think on your target goals, is there a Vision Zero goal to get to zero crashes and incidences? And then two, related to the climate goal that the city has just adopted, I want to say that I think that this is such an important plan. And honestly, if we intend to achieve the goal that the city has adopted, I think only the start. And so that piece about how do we fund it, how do we get it done now, because there's more that needs to happen if we want to be carbon neutral by 2030. I think the statistic from the Climate Action Group was that we needed to reduce car trips or vehicle trips by half. And that is a huge ask. And so, really just see this as the first phase of trying to achieve that goal this way.
Yeah, and I think, like I mentioned, you'll get more information about that at your next meeting from the sustainability section. But we're working with them to make sure that our targets match up with the city's overall climate change goal. And mode share is a component of their VMT goals, so we want to make sure that they match. On your other comments on Vision Zero, I think Vision Zero relates to fatalities, but I could be wrong. Does anybody know for sure that Vision Zero is zero fatalities?
That's right.
Got it. Thank you for that clarification.
Vice Chair Parks.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. I was actually asked by our chairperson to bring in some takeaways. I attended last month's Bicycle Advisory Committee meeting, and I think I've been in the last couple of months to a Pedestrian Advisory as well. So I do have a couple of interesting general comments and things that I think all of us on this commission need to pay attention to as we go into the review process. First of all, I want to say really kudos to both the membership of the Pedestrian Advisory and the Bike Advisory Committees, really encouraged by their participation and their input into these detailed planning processes. And then I was really impressed with the approach to doing the primary and secondary networks, because in past years that I've served on Bike Advisory and on transportation, the big emphasis was trying to connect all these disparate little pieces. And really, I think going after primary and secondary routing actually accomplishes it, not physically, but I think we get the greatest connectivity that way across the city and with active transportation. I did want to point out that there is another commission that has gotten involved with this work as well, and that's the Commission on Inclusion and Adaptive Living, a commission that I just came off of. And their concern is the equity in the system and for addressing the mobility needs of disabled persons as well as senior citizens, and there are more and more of us. I'd also like to point out that there's another area of connectivity, and that's with public transit and a concept known as the first and last miles, which is how do you actually get to the place where you pick up public transit? This is another part of the connection to ATMP. And with all these connections, integration and coordination, really want to call out that the that the great master of all this, Martin, known each other for years, and I really appreciate your leadership, the coaching you have given to these commissions as well as to the our two committees, and overall coordination. So thanks very much. And one last thing is, I'd also like to encourage my fellow commissioners here, and some of you already have been doing this, to once in a while attend the bicycle or pedestrian advisory committee meetings. Not really to to lend our expertise. We have that chance in our own meetings, but really to lend support for all the work that these other city volunteers are also doing. That's it.
Thank you, Vice Chair Parks. Well said, and I appreciate your participation in those committee meetings and reporting back. Martin, you had a slide early on or midway about the schedule, and you had said, maybe we look at presenting a couple of sections with other agenda items to the Transportation Commission, or we look at doing perhaps a workshop where the focus of the entire commission meeting is the ATMP. And I posed this question to my fellow commissioners. What I would ask is that we hold a special meeting as schedules allow. We generally meet every other month. So technically our next meeting would be the second Wednesday in December, I believe. First Wednesday, second Wednesday in December. But that we perhaps, if the timing works for you, Martin, Jeff, Rick, Brett, the team, if we hold a special meeting in November for a work session, and that we also look to invite the PED and Bike Advisory Committee members to that work session and focus solely on the ATMP. So I would, thanks Jeff, December 2nd, first Wednesday, check. So I pose that to my fellow commissioners. Your thoughts on that suggestion of conducting a special meeting? You're all so enthusiastic about it. All at once, everyone at once.
Sounds good to me.
I think it's a great idea, Julie, that, moving forward. So we all three kind of work together.
Right. Commissioner Morley?
Yeah, I really like the idea of setting a process where we are occasionally meeting with the bike and ped committees and looking at things together. And this could be a good opportunity to start that process. And I could be available the first week of November if we wanted to add a meeting there.
Commissioner Spice?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would support that. It'd be great to interact and have all three committees working together. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you. Commissioner Kraft?
Yeah, it sounds great to me. That was me saying that earlier.
Oh, thanks. I have everybody's voices recognized. Thanks. Commissioner Burton?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you. Vice Chair Parks?
Yes, of course. My schedule's pretty flexible, and I'd be happy to do that.
Wonderful. Well, it sounds like we have support for that special meeting, if that works for you, Martin. And we would like to invite the PED and Bike Advisory Committees.
Yes, thank you. We can arrange that and schedule that. I think it will be most beneficial for the commission to do that review kind of either just before or kind of in conjunction with the beginning of the public process. So that timing would work out.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Martin. Are there any other questions for Martin? Otherwise, we'll move to the next item on the agenda. Vice Chair Parks.
Yeah, for this meeting, could we also include a representative from the other commission, Inclusion and Adaptive Living?
Thank you.
Kevin, do you know which evening they usually meet? The Inclusion and Adaptive Living?
Yeah, they don't meet in an evening. They actually meet at noontime on, I think it's the last Tuesday of each month.
Okay, thank you. Yep, I've been to those meetings. I forgot the name changed.
Yeah, that's
Okay, yes, Martin and I can work on coordination of the 4 commissions. We'll see what we can do for dates the first week of November.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. We have 2 items left. One is Transportation Commission enabling legislation with updates, and then we also have the Boulder Pointe update. And I know it doesn't matter to me what order we go in, but I think there's at least one public person still hanging on, and they are interested in Boulder Pointe. So I'd propose that we just reorder those 2.
Absolutely. Let's move to Boulder Pointe, traffic calming preliminary alternatives.
Perfect. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for just throwing me in there right there, just randomly. Let's see. Share the screen over here. All right. So, let's see. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes.
Sweet. Thank you. So yeah, I was just going to give an update from last meeting. So for our last meeting, we decided to separate the 2 issues. The first issue was the gate removal, the before and after counts that have to do with that. And we decided because of COVID and that the numbers are rising, FESD schools aren't back in session and NAU is not back to their normal in-person classes yet, that we would just hold off on that and actually move forward with the traffic calming on University Avenue. University Avenue was the only location that we had counted that actually met the thresholds for the Residential Traffic Management Program, the RTMP. So that's what we decided last meeting, to move forward with this. And we've got a couple slides here to talk about it. So the process that we wanted to explain to you guys was kind of laid out on this slide here. So present the concept drawings for traffic calming on University. We've got those concept drawings already done and we'll show you them on the next slides. We're hoping to narrow down the concepts. We're hoping that Traffic Commission can have a nice discussion once we reviewed all of those and hopefully narrow it down to a couple or a few or whichever ones you guys are liking. And then at our next meeting in December, we can invite the HOA to choose the best concept and just have that discussion with the HOA to see which ones they're okay with. Maybe even inviting neighbors as well, or maybe just the board, the HOA boards for each of the neighborhoods, or sorry, just Boulder Pointe would make sense. Yeah, so choose the best concept there. And then we would like to test the chosen concept in the field. I believe we did this with the La Plaza Vieja traffic circles, the neighborhood traffic circles up there. I think Jeff had told me before my time that they actually put some candlesticks up in a circle and allowed people to use that for however long we decide to see how it worked, to see if speeds decreased, to see if cut through traffic decreased in that neighborhood. So that's what we would like to test, whichever concept we choose, to see if speeds actually decreased. Make sure that the design vehicles can maneuver the concept that we choose, and then just hear from the citizens, hear if they like it, if they don't like it, what it's missing, can we try something different? Just hear from them as well. So after that, if the chosen concept does work, put together funding, hire a designer and a contractor. So yeah, that's kind of what we're looking for here, the process. We're hoping for a good discussion, and I'm just going to jump into the alternatives now. So these drawings are pretty darn rough. I've thrown them together. All of these concepts that we're going to go over are actually from the City of Flagstaff engineering standards for traffic calming. So we're going to talk about the traffic circles and then many others. So the traffic circles, the neighborhood traffic circles, are defined as raised circular islands placed in an intersection, which traffic circulates around. They're typically a minimum of 14 foot in diameter and include a 2 foot wide mountable truck apron and landscaping inside of it. So there's a picture actually of the ones in La Plaza Vieja. I believe there's 3 in there right now. So I've also got some disadvantages and some advantages listed for each of these alternatives, and all of this stuff can actually be found in the engineering standards as well. So some advantages for the neighborhood traffic circles: they're effective at moderating speed, of course. It improves safety at the intersection. They're located at intersections, so it has the ability to calm 2 streets at once. And there is an aesthetic landscape opportunity. Some disadvantages include difficult for large trucks. They are designed such that the travel lane does not encroach upon the sidewalks. So the traffic circle is so little that it actually doesn't encroach on the sidewalk, the crosswalk at all. Let's see. They may eliminate some on-street parking, and maintenance needs to be considered. So maintenance of the landscaping and maintenance of if the concrete chips or whatnot, and the signs, of course. And an extra issue at these particular intersections is that it's a T intersection. So when I first thought about a traffic circle here, I thought it'd be great. But after doing some research, I really struggled to find an example of a neighborhood traffic circle at a T intersection. So they're designed so every leg of the intersection has to slow down on this. So at the top of the T, so this is a T intersection here at Majestic and University. At the top of the T for this westbound traffic up here, for example, they don't need to slow down to enter into this intersection. So I was struggling with the design of this. Also at Tamabaugh, the top of the T would be down here, and this traffic doesn't necessarily need to slow down. So it might be difficult to design this. But that can be part of the discussion later as well. And maybe a designer would have better ideas to do this, but that was an issue we wanted to bring up. And yeah, so that was it for these neighborhood traffic circles in this rough drawing. Moving on to the next concept, we've got curb extensions. So curb extensions are also known as bump outs, swells, or elephant ears. Those are other names that these curb extensions are called. And there's actually curb extensions at nearly every single intersection in downtown Flagstaff. So you might not even notice them, but this is right here is a curb extension, and as well as over here. So a curb extension is defined as an angled narrowing of the roadway and widening of the sidewalk at an intersection. So you are getting more sidewalk. Here, for example, at Tamabaugh, you're shooting out that curb, you're extending the curb. Anyways, so some advantages of curb extensions is that it improves pedestrian circulation and space. For a crosswalk, for an example, at the crosswalk, if someone wanted to cross right here, because technically it is an intersection, they are allowed to cross, it's a much shorter distance for that ped to be able to cross. The through and left turn movements are easily made by large vehicles. They create protected on-street parking bays. It reduces speeds, of course, and especially for right-turning vehicles. You're changing the radius of this curb right here, so the right-turning vehicles do have to, go slower around it. So some disadvantages of these curb extensions include Effectiveness is limited by the absence of vertical or horizontal deflection. A lot of the other concept drawings actually have the same disadvantage. If there's deflections in horizontal or vertical curves, it could limit the effectiveness of these concepts. They may require the elimination of some on-street parking near intersections. They may require slow right-turning emergency vehicles, and they may require bicyclists to briefly merge with vehicular traffic. So moving on to the next concept drawing. We've got the center island narrowing. Center island narrowing is defined as a raised island located along the center line of a street that narrows the travel lanes at that location. They are a minimum of 6 feet by 20 feet and landscaped. Some also include a pedestrian cut through. So an example of this that we have in town, this is not the one we have in town, but this is another example. We actually have one of these on San Francisco Street heading northbound, just north of downtown. They have this traffic calming thing up there. So if you guys actually want to drive through one of these, go for it. Let's see, some advantages of a center island narrowing are it increases pedestrian safety in a case where there actually is a crosswalk, and it reduces speeds. Some disadvantages include speed reduction effect is limited by the absence of any vertical or horizontal deflections. They may eliminate some on-street parking, and there needs to be 300 feet to 500 feet spacing between the center islands for smooth speeds. So ideally, you would have a couple of these in a row, approximately 300 to 500 feet between them, and it would just keep that speed smooth and hopefully lower than it was without it. So yeah, that's a center island narrowing. You also have the opportunity to do landscaping in those, as the drawing shows. And yeah, so moving on to the next concept. This is called a choker. A choker is defined as a mid-block curb extension that narrows a street by expanding the sidewalk or adding a planting strip, and often are installed at mid-block crossings. So there is no crossing right here, but the only example I was able to find of a choker actually does have a crosswalk. Let's see, some advantages. They're easy to navigate by large vehicles, and they reduce speeds. Some disadvantages, the effect on speed is limited by the presence of the horizontal and vertical deflections once again. Bicycles do briefly have to merge with traffic, and they once again eliminate some on-street parking. This is just a proposed location that one of these chokers can be. If the commission does like this idea, they can be located elsewhere. But it's very similar to those bump outs those curb extensions that we saw in the previous drawing. So anyways, that's a choker. And this last one is a chicane. I'm sorry for this drawing. I was really struggling trying to get those lines back to normal. So there's a couple of other examples we have on here of what a chicane is. This is probably not really feasible for this location because it's a queuing street, and this University Ave has much higher volumes than a typical queuing street would have. So I don't know if this is practical, but it gives you an idea. It's literally pushing vehicles to the left, back to the right, and so on and so forth to slow them down. Here's another example. I don't believe it's real. It looks like it's been drawn up, but this is a chicane done in striping. There's nothing really stopping vehicles from just, coming straight through this because it's just striping once again, but maybe candlesticks or something odd like that. So anyways, a chicane is defined as a lateral shift that alternates on both sides of the street, creating an S-shaped travel path. Some advantages, it reduces speeds through horizontal deflection, and large vehicles can easily navigate through it. Some disadvantages include they're designed to prevent drivers from weaving out of their lane. Curb alignment and landscaping could be costly. Drainage needs to be considered. And may eliminate some on-street parking, and also snow plowing may be difficult to maneuver. So yeah, drainage would be definitely odd in some of these scenarios up here. You can see that they kept this storm drain, this curb, this gutter right here open to allow for drainage. But yeah, I just gave you guys 5 examples, and I'm sure I'll be, you know, running through these as you have questions. I haven't been looking to the chat box, but that is all we had, and we are open to commissioner discussion and questions, and hopefully something that'll be awesome.
Thank you, Stephanie. And I think what I'd like to do is ask the commissioners to hold their comments. But if there are any questions right now, to ask them, ask questions, and then I'd like to invite the member of the public up to address the commission, and then we can return to commissioner comments. So first ask any commissioners that have questions about what Stephanie has presented. Let me see. Vice Chair Parks, is your hand up?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, I don't see any specific questions at this time, Stephanie. So I would like to invite the member of the public to address the commission. If you would please provide your name for the commission.
This is Brian Lee Wilson. I'm assuming that you know, you're referring to me. I do live in Boulder, Pointe. I'm actually I serve on the HOA, or actually it's ROA board. We also have a separate committee, which is the Woody Way Gate Committee, and I happen to be the chairman of that. So I'm really here to, you know, to see what the thinking is. You know, I appreciate the fact that there's 5 suggestions offered. I don't know that I'm able to sort of absorb and reflect and provide some meaningful, you know, feedback at this point without further reflection. I'd like to think about it myself, and we've got a process that we're creating so that we can get some meaningful input, not only from the other committee members, but, you know, members of the neighborhood. And so, you know, I think that what I'd like to do is to hold my comments. I can say that that last option with the chicane, I probably see, you know, some more issues or challenges with using that. I came into the meeting based on some brief comments I heard at the last commission meeting 2 months ago, thinking that maybe the traffic circle issue, you know, would be helpful. I can say that I wish that would work out, because, you know, my concept of that in a you know, a traditional intersection is that it does work pretty well. I hadn't thought about the challenges in a T intersection, you know, which Stephanie presented and discussed. So I'd like to think more about that. You know, my first comment, and this would be just me as an individual, not me speaking as part of the HOA board or the Woody Way committee. I was thinking that if you did do circles, that you wouldn't need it at both Tombaugh and University, and also Majestic and University. Most of the traffic that goes past Tombaugh, well, not most, but certainly a sizable majority, whether it's half or nearly half or a little over half, actually turns left at Majestic. So they naturally slow down. You know, I think the real concern is vehicles that go straight through, you know, Majestic. And if you look at University all the way from, you know, Highland Mesa all the way up to Woodlands Village, it's basically uninterrupted. It's probably a mile and a half long of cars just going straight, and they sort of pick up speed the further they go. I had thought that maybe just one circle at Tombaugh would slow them down enough, and then maybe some other traffic calming option during the middle of University might keep them calmer, and that would prevent the need for having something at Majestic. But that's just a top of mind, reaction. Like I said, I'd really like to, do myself justice and reflect on it a little bit more and not waste the commission's time with my, senseless ramblings. So that would just be, my initial comment. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wilson, for providing your thoughts and some ideas and some suggestions. And I definitely respect the desire to listen some more and consider these new options. So with that, I would like to turn it back to the commission and ask for comments and thoughts. Commissioner Morley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great presentation, and thanks for all the ideas and research. A couple thoughts. One, I really like a lot of these ideas, and as I look at them, want to trust staff with what is the right thing to implement with certain goals in mind. And as you were talking, I was thinking I really liked things that had landscaping, benefits to pedestrians. You mentioned on some that a downside was street parking would go away. I'm not overly concerned with that. I don't see a bunch of cars on the streets over there and think that's a fine trade-off to make. And then I couldn't tell on the drawing if all the sections were 2 lanes or if it was 4 lanes or if it was 2 lanes with parking. But ultimately, if it is the 4 lanes with parking, I also think it's appropriate to consider, removing some of those lanes to make space for some of the improvements that you were suggesting. So, which example? I don't know what's best. I'll leave that to you. But those are my thoughts about goals and priorities for the cross section. And then, if we actually have a secondary question is, do we actually have funding to implement any of this? And if so, maybe it's worth talking to the community about what they prefer in the design. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Jeff and Stephanie, what would be the funding source for improvements on University Avenue?
I'm going to ask Jeff to take that one.
Yeah, sure. I'll jump in. There is no dedicated line item in what Brett showed you earlier, but there is some accounts. I'd have to look at it more closely, but the general improvements and partnering opportunities is probably an opportunity to look for funding. I believe there may be one other line item, but yeah, I don't know that we're not limited to 0. We don't have obviously a huge budget because we don't have any budget at all. We're asking to get into the budget process, but I would expect that we could afford some of these options as we move forward. Of course, funding always takes time, so it may not, these things take time. That's why Stephanie's presenting, the best step would be to try some of these with something like candlesticks or cones or barricades or something like that. And then as you can get funding established, get a design established and a contractor hired, then get it in place. So it's not something that would likely it would not happen next summer in a permanent fashion. It'd be the next summer. So that works well for funding. That was a long answer, but I added a few extra things into that.
And Commissioner Morley, did you have a follow-up question to that?
I have many follow-up questions to that. Going back to how, obviously there's a limited budget and many probably small projects like this. It goes a little bit back to what I was trying to speak to before, but maybe not that eloquently. How can we react to things that come up and then prioritize them? This is a great one, but I'm sure that there's 100 of these around the city. So as we're looking at that funding pot that's available, how are we able to look at them all, that might be needed and warranted and then prioritize? So I know that's not necessarily a question, but that's what I'm thinking right now.
Yeah, let me jump in a little bit. We've typically just worked through these projects as they come in or as we can get to a solution. I can let you know that we have 3 neighborhoods like this call us this week. The COVID work from home has been a boom for neighborhoods asking for traffic calming. So I think we have 3 new neighborhoods this week and a whole handful of them that you haven't even heard about yet that are in between Boulder, Pointe, and the new ones that came in this week. So yeah, prioritization, definitely something we should talk about as a group going forward. But traditionally, we've just, whoever is ready, we've worked on that one first. And we only have so much staff to work on these, so it's not like we can get 7 of them ready, you know, for the next meeting kind of thing. It tends to work itself out, though it takes time.
And something to add to that, this is the only location since I've been working for the city that's actually met that residential management spreadsheet thing. So I think that should be another large part of how we choose this, is this one does have high speeds and high volumes, and it does meet that.
Thank you. Commissioner Kuhn, then Vice Chair Parks.
Thank you. Stephanie, great job. I'm a little concerned about some of the designs. We just talked about bicycles and making it free for I think we make sure that we have a goal that we don't impede bicyclists on that, and then bringing in that, obviously our buses have got to go through it. I would look for the circles, even though, we have to slow down and do things, and obviously hurt the plows, but then we're not looking at, again, what we just talked about, bicycle wrecks with traffic. So, Martin would have to speak up on that, on the different safety elements of each one. I would want that brought up.
Oh, go ahead, Martin.
Sorry, Madam Chair, Commissioner Kuhn. Yeah, I think there's some potential overlap, because one of the facilities that is a possibility is called a bike boulevard, where really it relies on calming neighborhood speeds and reducing volumes on neighborhood streets to make them more comfortable for bikes. So to that extent, part of the project may have making it better for bikes may help make it a nicer street for the neighborhood as well.
Thank you. That's what you do, the two and narrow it down and slow them down and protect them. I know it'll be a little more expensive. You're not looking at that, but.
Vice Chair Parks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to echo Jeff's remarks about the use of the candlesticks as you phase into a possible streetscape improvement. I think that we went through this kind of process as well with the pedestrian crossings on 4th Street and possibly other locations in the city. And I think it is a really good approach to getting down to the details of what would work best as far as calming traffic speed through University.
Other comments from commissioners? Okay, I echo what Commissioner Kuhn said about bicyclists, and I think it would be difficult to support a scenario where bicyclists were asked to merge with vehicular traffic. So in looking at those examples, I saw you had scrolled back to some of the images from the Bikeways plan and having that protected bikeway. And I would like to see, as we pursue and look at these options, if there is going to be a pinch point, that we have that protected bikeway that runs adjacent. That may reduce the number of options out there for that type of facility. And that's my primary comment on that. And I appreciate what Mr. Wilson said about perhaps one location really focusing on let's see, what was the cross street? It wasn't Majestic, but keep on, I say Tonopah, but
Tonopah.
thank you. Tonopah, but focusing on that particular intersection.
I think that sounds good. That's definitely the entryway and an entryway into this neighborhood and stuff. Going back to these bike things, Jeff wanted me to mention that there are some issues, some hardships with these of snow plowing and stuff. So they would have to get different types of equipment out there, like a little plow that's hooked to a little bobcat or something to be able to plow something like this. So there is maintenance and some issues. So this would definitely have to. It's a good discussion. We struggled to find a way to put bikes in these drawings without keeping the roads so wide. And because we want to narrow the roads for speeds, of course, but we were just kind of struggling how to fit bikes in there. So yeah, we should definitely have this discussion and some more ideas if you guys have them.
And will you remind me, Stephanie, about the Parkway and sidewalk geometry in that immediate area?
Yes, I think they're out there as 5-foot sidewalks. Does that sound right, Jeff? There is no parkway. And then this is all parking lane right here. So this white stripe here is all a parking lane and about 6.5 feet. And then it's got a big fat travel lane. So we've got 40 feet of asphalt here to play with. And then I think a 5 or 6 foot sidewalk.
Okay. So are cyclists generally using the parking area? Because I agree with Kate. When I've gone through that section of University, I don't usually see people parked in this particular section very often, if ever I can recall. So how are cyclists using this section? Do you know?
I think they're using it just like you explained. They're typically riding in that parking lane. And then if there's a vehicle parked there, they'll just merge into the traffic. But that's where we've seen bicyclists riding.
Vice Chair Parks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I used to actually work in this vicinity over on Thompson Street. I was there for several years, so did a lot of biking, walking through this neighborhood. One thing I want to point out is about the on-street parking between Tonopah and Majestic is that we need to check this out on Sundays. There is a church right there. I think you can see the parking lot, some of it in the illustration. And so there may be some curbside parking, particularly on Sunday mornings, keep in mind. But the other thing I'd observe is that, well, I did see pedestrians quite a bit. I can't say that I see that many cyclists going through. Now, admittedly, I left that office about 5 years ago, so things could have changed.
Thank you. 40 feet of asphalt.
And it does kind of have a pinch point. You could see right here, I hope you can see my marker at the very corner of this picture. It does pinch down a little bit. I think it goes to about 37 over here. But over here, like across from Majestic, we've got 40 feet.
And Martin, have you weighed in on these layouts related to the work that's underway, the ATMP?
Madam Chair, we just had some preliminary conversations, not too dissimilar from the conversation we're having now. It is identified as one of the secondary bikeways. Like I said before, the volumes are fairly low. If there's a way to get speeds down there, that it may function well as a bike boulevard, where if the speeds are lower, cyclists would be more comfortable just riding with traffic. I think the gentleman who lives in the neighborhood is still here. He might weigh in on what he observes relative to cyclists going through that area as well. I'd be curious to hear his perspective.
Mr. Wilson, are you still on the line here?
Yeah, this is Brian Wilson again. I guess I'll give you just two comments. Number one, there's not a lot of heavy, bike traffic on University Avenue. Not that I see, and I do travel it just to see what what the road conditions are, both from on-street parking and vehicle speeds and whatever. I travel it at a number of different times, actually all around the clock, from 3 a.m. in the morning to noon to 6 p.m. at dinner time and whatever. So there's not a lot of bicycle traffic. There's only a little bit of on-street parking, but at any time year round, you might only see 10 to 12 cars parked on the street along University Avenue, all the way from Tombaugh all the way up to Highland Mesa, which is not quite a mile, but over half a mile away. I guess I'd also react to Mr. Park's comment about Sunday morning church parking. They do have a parking lot there, and it is pretty large. I see very little street parking, Sunday mornings, and but I might be wrong, and it's just sort of informal observation in that regard. But that's the best I can give you, just extemporaneously.
Well, thank you for sharing your observations. Maybe what we can do is just take a quick spin through each one of the exhibits, and if there are one or two that we could at least rule out, that would maybe provide some direction for some further analysis. So maybe starting with the traffic circle option with the T intersection, I definitely think this one has value and is worth exploring further. And I think I've heard from a couple of other commissioners that there's some appeal to the circles. The next one, Stephanie, that was in the presentation.
Yeah. So the next one are the curb extensions.
I think these also have some potential merit if we can, I guess, look at bike traffic through there in that pinch, if there is enough room for a cyclist to be seen and to get through that. And I'm trying to think of where these have been. I was trying to think, were these done in Sunnyside, Stephanie?
I don't think so. I can't picture them in Sunnyside, but they're all throughout downtown.
Yeah, and I think, the downtown is a good example, but there's so much going on with downtown with pedestrians and so much activity that people just kind of naturally slow down to check it out.
Yeah. I guess an option, I don't know, I've never talked about this with Jeff, but you could almost throw them off of the road onto this extra sidewalk where the curb extensions are. Almost like you do if you're at a traffic circle or a roundabout, how they kind of throw them onto the sidewalk. So maybe almost just like a little bike path going through here, and then throwing them back into the parking lane. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that was why I was asking about the if there was Parkway and what the width of the sidewalk was, to see if there might be an opportunity for that. So I do think the bump outs would have merit to explore further, as do the islands. From a snow removal standpoint, it's probably the same as the bump outs too, thinking about O&M. The next one is the mid block.
Yep, the choker.
The choker. Thank you, Rick. Yeah, Rick had said there's something similar in portions of Sunnyside, and I do recall having a couple of intersections with the bump outs. And I think we're also looking at doing that at Beale and Navajo. and that project's underway. Fellow commissioners, your thoughts compared to the other three on the mid-block bump out? One to explore further, or the other three on the table adequate or preferred?
Hello, Madam Chair. This is Derek. I think the mid-block is effective, and I do live in Sunnyside, so I know the constrictions definitely slow traffic effectively.
Okay. Right. Next one, or any other comments, commissioners, on that one? Commissioner Kraft does say he favors the circle as the simplest to implement. And I should add that Commissioner Burton had to leave, but his comment was that he thought the center islands, like on San Francisco around Elm, do slow things down. The last one is the chicane, and very interesting. But one, I think, yeah, I'll leave it at that. Very interesting. I don't know if that would, compared to the other ones, if that would be worth exploring further.
Dump it.
I would, yeah, I would support dumping that one.
I totally agree with that.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, I think we've narrowed it down to a few, Stephanie, and we've got some suggestions about bicyclists. Is this something you're willing to return to commission again in December?
Of course, yeah, and we would like to invite the HOA. Do you think that was a good plan, the process to move forward, where we invite the HOA and show them, those 3 or 4 that we did like?
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. That'll be our plan then. I'm gonna save some of the chat stuff over here because it's got some good info, and thank you guys so much for this discussion.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson, final comment before we move on?
Yeah, it was really a question or a request. I'm happy and supportive of inviting the HOA, for the December meeting. I'm wondering, however, though, if there's any material that Stephanie and Jeff would feel comfortable distributing so that, members can have a chance to reflect on it and be prepared to offer comments at that meeting. I think people would be interested in it. I don't want to get over, anyone's skis as far as looking at it, but if we've narrowed down the options and they're more meaningful, I think it'd be a more efficient way to collect input. Do you see any way that would make sense or not?
Absolutely. I can definitely send this to the HOA. I think is it Homeco or Sterling, one of the two. I've been in contact with her, so I do not mind forwarding that to them, and then they can be in contact with the board. And of course, I'll send you this PowerPoint when today's over as well.
Okay. So I'm looking at the time. Thank you so much, Stephanie. I'm looking at the time, and I know Lieutenant Higgins needs to sign off here soon, and I know we've gone long. So we have one more item on old business, and then concluding general business. So for the old business item, this is the charter for the Transportation Commission, and Jeff had sent out a proposed markup with the agenda packet. And I think in the interest of time, I would just simply turn it to my commissioners and ask if there were any concerns or suggestions to those markups. I did review them, and I think those suggestions for markups and making it more broad, our charter, I am in full favor of that. Commissioner Morley.
Yeah, thank you. I read the markups as well, and I'm generally in favor of making it more broad and not tying to specific funding sources or outdated funding sources, so that that doesn't always need to change. I think the one concern I had when I read it was related to some of the tax, like the helping make decisions related to tax funding and capital planning projects. Just wanted to make some of the language sounded like it was reducing some of the commission's authority by striking all of it. And while I don't want to be specific about, specific funding sources, I don't want us to lose any authority or clarity over those roles. And so that's my one comment.
Thank you, Kate. Was that specific to, Jeff, do you have that doc available that you could share your screen?
Yeah, here's the changes. If not now, maybe later you could provide me more specifics. I'm not sure I'm following that comment.
Sure, and maybe I'm just reading it wrong. I think when I just saw it was more related to the changes in D2 there than the first section. And just want to clarify the intent. And as long as we're all clear on that intent, I think it's fine.
The intent was just to be more general, actually, than to eliminate things. It was to be more general to everything. Per the description above that we went more general, which was just Transportation Capital Improvements Program, which covers all of those items listed below.
Great. I think then that's in line with where I wanted to go. So then don't have any other concerns. Thank you.
Okay.
Vice Chair Parks.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I like this approach to making this broader, because really having a broader ordinance about what we do gives us a lot more flexibility. And I think the flexibility is what's coming at us in terms of all the different kinds of planning we're starting to see, and the integration of those plans, and especially as we move through the current national crisis, which is affecting us locally, of course. So this looks pretty good, Jeff. Thank you.
I would like to move this forward with an ordinance to modify the current code in reference to the current transportation tax. Jeff, do we need to, sorry, Commissioner Morley, did you have another question? Your little hands up.
Nope, sorry, I'll lower it.
Good. So make sure I don't miss anybody. Do we need to make a motion on this one, Jeff?
Let me look at the agenda if I asked for a motion. I don't think I did. I was just looking for review the current direction and support. So I wasn't asking for a motion, that wasn't agendized. So if I have your concurrence and support, then I will continue on my path to City Council here in the next couple of months to make this so.
Thank you, Jeff. Commissioner Kraft.
Yeah, what date did you send that out? Because somehow I just got a link to the existing one. I didn't get the edits, so I'm not basically up on what these edits are. And I may have just missed it, but I just went to the city website and read the existing one. Okay, so is the first block of edits, is that really just getting clear of stuff that's not relevant anymore, or what are we doing here? I'm having trouble reading it.
That's correct. So we're eliminating the transportation tax that was voted on in May of 2000.
Okay.
And we're eliminating the road repair and street safety initiative, which was voted on in November of 14. So the 2000s expired. So the original approach was just to insert the election of November 18. And then we realized, geez, we do this every time we change. Why don't we just clean this up and just
so make it evergreen?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the second one, we got rid of, I lost my cursor. We got rid of sales tax revenues, so it's just more generally revenues now. And then we got rid of this part, which we could put back in. I think this is all inclusive, kind of, but it's not really. So it's all transportation modes, road repair. Again, road repair was up here, we got rid of. So eliminating that last part of that sentence doesn't remove any scope. It just leaves it more general.
Okay, I'm good, thanks.
Well, thank you, Jeff. Commissioner Kuhn agrees with the proposed changes. So I think we would like to see that this move forward. Thank you.
Thanks. I'll keep you updated as that does move forward to City Council here. And again, a couple of months, we'll get it on the agenda.
Great. So I'd like to move on to item 4, concluding general business. There's the reports from PED and Bike Advisory Committee, and Vice Chair Parks offered those earlier, so I appreciate that. So I would turn it over to you, Jeff, of looking at that list. What things would you like to give us an update on tonight before we adjourn?
I can go pretty fast for you. Let's see, commissioner discussion. Maybe we'll also have another opportunity for that before we run out here. But Santa Fe Avenue, the police department spent some time out there doing some more targeted enforcement, and whatever they've been doing and we've been talking about, things seem to have calmed down. So they're not issuing citations and not seeing those issues that they were seeing before. Again, we didn't see really speeding. It was this noise issue. So that one for now is off the list. We're pretty happy with that. Transportation engineering staffing update. We have a vacancy and we actually are advertising right now. So if you know anyone who would like to be a transportation engineer at the city of Flagstaff, let them know. The job is open for another 2 weeks or so. Boulder Pointe Gate follow-up studies. Stephanie covered that really well with the University Avenue, so I won't go through that again. For Cedar Locket Roundabout, we applied for a Highway Safety Improvement Program grant. I think it's actually been a couple of years ago. We're finally up to the point where funding is in the program, and we have almost hired a designer to start work on that roundabout. We will bring that to you as it progresses, but exciting. We're almost to hiring a designer, and their preliminary schedule would have us through design next calendar year, sometime in the fall. So moving along on that. And then one interesting one, Industrial Steve's traffic signal. So that's the traffic signal at Industrial and Steve's. Those are 2 city streets, but the signal is operated by ADOT because of the close proximity to the Steve's and Route 66 intersection. We've been talking. The signal is probably not warranted and may be hampering the operations there. So ADOT's started a study, started counting, and the study will come to see if that signal is even warranted anymore. So we'll keep you updated on that.
Is that one just south of the tracks? Do I have that correct?
It is. It's the intersection just south of the tracks.
Okay.
Keep in mind the school over there when you look at that, Jeff, and keeping it down slow. It's not one of ours. Okay.
Right. The alternative high school.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for that update, Jeff. I'm happy to hear about the Santa Fe Avenue noise issue. Turn it over to commissioners. Items of discussion. Commissioner Morley, anything with Mountain Line that you would like to share with the group?
Yeah, a quick update. We're still working on the Caspar intersection out by our headquarters. We're going to do a public meeting on October 28th at 5:30 via Zoom. If anybody wants to attend, I'd be happy to share. We're getting in, I think the concept design's pretty well nailed down at this point. I'm excited to see that happen. That's our big project right now that's of interest. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Kuhn, FUSD updates?
As probably you know, the board voted last night. We're going back to school here. It'll be, well, I can't say when exactly. Depends on the numbers on the div thing, but it'll probably be into this month or the first week of November in person.
For that update. Commissioner Parks, any updates on your end? We haven't already covered?
Yes. Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. One note to be aware of, especially the motorists among us. I've been observing bleed out of cars into the travel lanes from takeout restaurants where there is a drive-through offered, and this gets to be pretty dangerous in the curb lane. I took a look at the ARD about standing, and while we can always ask for more law enforcement, I'm wondering if the placement of no standing signs, the curb approaches to these places might do just as much deterrence for a lot less money and a lot more efficiently. Thanks.
Jeff, do you have any comments or responses to that?
Sure. Please stop going to Cane's, Chick-fil-A, and Mama Burger, and it'll be okay. We've been out to all of those and taken a look. We've been able to make some suggestions at Chick-fil-A to the management, and I think it's getting better. Cane's came up this week from a couple of people, and I know it's on our list to get a hold of the manager. I know Reed was out there today taking a look at it and saw a few things that we can help them with to improve efficiencies through the drive-through. We had really good success with not Wicked Coffee. Stephanie, help me. The coffee shop over in
Dutch.
Thank you. Dutch Brothers. We had really good luck there working with them. So these seem to be COVID related because dining rooms are closed. So it's a temporary thing, but we are working on a few of them to try to get just a little better flow through the drive-through. Most of them are happening on an ADOT right-of-way. So we don't have really any jurisdiction, but we have been talking to these places and trying to make some improvements. So that's what I have so far on those.
Commissioner Theis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeff, if you could add to your list is the Polybertos on Cedar. And just because that's where I frequent. And that is, whatever solutions you have there, that is causing a clog as you approach going east on Cedar. Thank you.
Commissioner Kraft, any announcements or updates that you'd like to share?
I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for hanging on for a longer meeting than typical. This was great information, great presentation, so much to talk about. I did attend the Metro Plan board meeting today, and a couple takeaways on that. Metro Plan is really looking for partnering for grant opportunities to leverage funds, but their biggest challenge is really overcoming administrative costs of administering grants as a result of federalizing funds. So that's one thing that they're sorting through. Metro Plan will be leading, from what I heard, the Regional Transportation Plan update, and they've been working on the model. Dave Wessel's been working on that, should have that complete by the end of the year, and they will start leading that RTP update beginning in 2021. The next item I have was something Brett mentioned earlier, which was the Arizona State Land Department is auctioning off that 405 acres of state land. This is at the eastern terminus of Pine Canyon, the portion of JWP. It goes through this state land parcel, so that's October 22nd, and I'm eager to hear how that goes. And with that, I'd like to thank my fellow commissioners for considering a special meeting in November to dive into the Alternative Transportation Master Plan. Next meeting, regular meeting of December 2nd. Tentative agenda items look good. And if there's no further questions or comments, I would seek a motion to adjourn with that.
So moved.
Seconded.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you, Jeff, Martin, Rick, Brett, whole city team. Have a wonderful week, and I'll be talking with you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night is right. Good night.
Good night. Great job, everyone. Thank you.